Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to unpack what I think is the ultimate philosophical mystery. It's a question that literally sits at the very core of human existence. Does what we see, hear, and feel every single day actually reflect objective truth? Because, we all just walk around assuming the world is exactly as we perceive it. But the actual science behind what's happening inside your head, it paints a vastly, vastly different picture. So, are you really experiencing reality? Now, philosophers have debated this for centuries, practically as long as philosophy has been a thing. And you might instinctively say, well, yeah, of course I am. I'm experiencing reality in its stark, objective truth. But the scientific answer to this question is a mind-bending, not exactly. To figure out why, here's our roadmap for this explainer. We'll start with the reality debate, then look at the dark, silent box, move on to guessing the cause, predicting with past experience, creating social reality, and finally, wrap up with the power of imagination. Think of these as the crucial clues we're going to follow to uncover exactly how your mind works. Let's kick things off with Section 1, the reality debate. To really understand how your brain works, we first have to establish a fundamental rule. Our reality isn't just passively absorbed. It's not like your brain is a sponge just soaking up water from the outside. No, reality is actively constructed. What we experience as reality relies just as much on the internal signals in your brain making sense of things as it does on the sensory signals actually coming in from the outside world. Both halves of this equation are absolutely crucial. You literally cannot have reality without them working together. That brings us to Section 2, the dark, silent box. This gets us to a central biological problem, and we need a really visceral metaphor to grasp just how wild our biology actually is. Imagine this. Your brain, my brain, everybody's brain is completely trapped. It's locked inside its own dark, silent box, which we call the skull. Just think about that for a second. Your brain has absolutely no direct knowledge of what's going on out in the world. It doesn't even know what's directly happening in your own body. It's completely locked away in the pitch black, only getting clues through the sensory signals it receives from the surfaces of your body. Moving to Section 3, guessing the cause. Now, what's really interesting about this is that because the brain is trapped in that dark box, it only gets the sensory outcomes. It gets the effects of changes in the world or in your body, but it doesn't actually know what caused them. In science, this is called the reverse inference problem, which means starting with a sensory outcome and having to guess at the cause. Basically, your brain is acting like a blindfolded detective. It's constantly trying to solve this high-stakes mystery backward, relying entirely on the final clues it receives. Let's look at a practical example of how this plays out. Imagine you hear a really loud bang. It could be a car backfiring, right? It could be a door slamming in the wind, or it could be a gunshot. Your brain doesn't inherently know the cause. It only knows the effect, which is the loud noise. So it has to instantly guess the cause, and that guess is incredibly important. Why? Well, because your survival reaction to a gunshot needs to be vastly different from your reaction to the wind just slamming a door. Let's move on to Section 4, predicting with past experience. Let's see how this all builds. How does the brain actually solve this daily mystery if it can't see the outside world? Well, it uses its most vital, powerful resource, your past experience. Your brain predictively runs a model of its body through a super rapid sequence of steps. First, it receives a sensory outcome. Second, it searches through your past experiences. Third, it creates a category by grouping similar past instances together. And fourth, it uses that category to predict what's going to happen next and what it needs to do about it. And think about how fascinating these categories actually are. When we look at an apple, we can easily categorize it by its physical features. We'll say it's round, it's hard, it's crunchy. But your brain goes a step further and creates abstract features, these multimodal summaries of patterns. It categorizes a certain group of apples as good for baking versus not good for baking. Now, that good for baking summary, that doesn't physically exist in the apple itself. It only actually exists inside your mind, constructed by your brain. Which brings us to Section 5, creating social reality. This abstract categorizing leads to a massive aha moment for us. It's the exact mechanism behind humanity's master illusion. Because human brains naturally organize the world by function rather than just physical form, we create what's called social reality. This happens when we collectively impose a function on objects that they do not inherently possess just by their physical nature. Basically, we collectively invent realities that aren't actually physically real. And this brilliantly illustrates the profound difference between physical and social reality. Look at money. Little pieces of paper are physically just paper. But in our social reality, they are money with immense value. Lines in the sand become borders that literally dictate who's an immigrant and who's a citizen. Making little tick marks on a ballot creates governments and hands people vast amounts of power. Even a scowling face only carries a specific psychological meaning because we all collectively agree that it does within our culture. Literally none of this exists outside of our shared agreement. It's wild. Finally, Section 6, the power of imagination. This brings our journey to a highly grounding takeaway. Being trapped in this biological dark box, constantly solving reverse inference problems all day, it isn't actually a limitation. It's our ultimate superpower. But imagination is for sure a double-edged sword. On one hand, because your brain can take bits and pieces of past experience to invent things you've never even seen before, you have this incredible ability to create entirely new ideas. But on the flip side, because this massive predictive engine is so good at creating realities that aren't tied to our immediate surroundings, we often have a lot of trouble staying in the present moment. We just get lost in our own predictions. So the crucial point here, what it all boils down to, is this thought. You have to practice your ability to control how much you want to be constrained by what's going on outside that box and how much you want to be free of it. Since your brain is actively constructing the reality you experience, you're not just a passive observer. You hold the power to practice how you experience the world today. Are you going to let your brain's predictions completely detach you from the moment? Or will you choose to ground yourself in the physical reality right in front of you? Remember, the reality you're going to experience tomorrow is being built by the predictions you are practicing today.